I call this meeting of the Davenport Community School District Board of Directors to order. People have asked me to try and keep this meeting short, so I'm going to do what I can to keep it short. Basically, this first page and a half is let's respect each other, okay? So we'll move on to board priorities. Director Hayes, would you please read our board priorities?
Actually, I would like to defer that to Natalie, if you're available. Can you read the board priorities? That's okay.
Mary will put them up there for you. Here, now. She doesn't have them.
Okay.
Oh, here, actually.
The Davenport School Board establishes the following priorities to ensure the academic success of all students. Provide leadership and direction to improve the overall learning environment in our classrooms, schools, and districts, including the health, safety, security, and happiness of our students and staff, and to direct and support actions, programs, and activities which reduce the impact of poverty on our students and families and our community.
Okay, thank you. And our Director Mayfield is not here tonight, right now. He has been at a previous meeting and he is at another event right now, but he hopes to be here later in the evening. But we do, I'd like somebody to read the mission and vision statements, and I will ask Allison to go ahead and direct it.
Since Natalie now has the mission and vision statement, why don't you go ahead and read those for us? Thank you.
The mission statement is to enhance each student's abilities by providing a quality education enriched by our diverse community. And the vision statement is education that challenges conventional thinking, prepares all students to compete in a global society, and inspires our students, parents, staff, and community to answer the question, what if?
All right, thank you very much. Interim Superintendent Schneckla, do we have any student board reports?
Natalie, would you like to start us on our student board reports?
She's never going to come back. 4 Central High School seniors have earned all-state football honors based on academic success. The Central student Sydney Park made history by winning at Iowa's first girls state wrestling tournament. Central's award-winning literary and art magazine, Indigo Ink, will be publishing its 8th edition this coming May and is looking for poetry, short stories, photographs, and artworks from students to include in the magazine. Kiara Mitchell won the donut competition at the American Culinary Federation Winterfest at the Bettendorf Isle of Capri for her peanut butter and jelly creation. Students in the advanced photography class had the unique opportunity to execute a fashion shoot workshop at the Creative Arts Academy, where they got to work with professional models and photographers. The Central Processing Unit's robotics team won their league championship and will be competing in the Super Regionals in Iowa City next weekend. The Drama Club is hosting their latest blood drive this Wednesday after school. And the freshman, sophomore girls basketball team moved their record to 16-0 with their win over Clinton last Friday.
The first couple of weeks of third term have been pretty busy at West. The 12 Gaelic Court members were selected for the dance, and it was supposed to be on the 26th this past weekend, but it was moved to February 9th because of weather. Students are currently voting for the Gaelic King, and that will be announced at the dance. Auditions for the spring musical were held this past week, and the cast list has been put out. This year's show is Little Shop of Horrors, and it will be held at West on March 22nd, 23rd, and 24th. Over the weekend, the West High Jazz Band competed at the IHSMA State Jazz Competition at Assumption High School. The band was recognized as a Division I jazz band and received scores of 48, 48, and 49 out of 50 from the 3 judges. On the same day, both of West robotics teams competed at a regional competition in DeWitt. Both of West teams, the Mortal Kombats and the Combustible Lemons, advanced to the Super Qualifiers, which will be held at North High School on the 9th of February. Lastly, the other representative from West, who's not here today, Alyssa, was awarded a full ride scholarship to Iowa State University.
Thank you very much.
And, you know, as I was looking out here, I just wanted to say thank you to all of you for coming out on a night like tonight. Even though it isn't horrible, it's nice to have all of you out here. We'll move on to communications. Director Potts, would you please read those for us? Oh, excuse me, I went right by it. Are there any board reports? Director Beck.
Sorry. I attended the CTE career night. When was it? Thursday, January 17th. And I was only able to stay for the speaker, who was a great speaker, Mark Perna. It was a really good event. There were a lot of local businesses there, and a lot of our Davenport career and technical education programs were represented. It seemed to do really well, and I look forward to seeing what it looks like in the future as it grows.
Sure.
Thank you. Director DeSalvo.
Thank you. I'm gonna. So, a lot of time has been spent over the last several weeks regarding our superintendent search. We conducted 9 hours of interviews. We've had at least 4 planning meetings. So there's a lot going on. We have a lot of information that we are looking at this time. The next events that will occur will be February 5th, 6th, and 7th. And on each of those days, we will have one candidate here with us all day. And we will begin with a networking breakfast luncheon. There will be community groups that will have opportunity to come meet with the candidates. There will be parents, students that will be invited to come meet with the candidates. There will be administrators, teachers, staff that will be able to meet with them, city council members, community groups will be invited to come meet with them, ask questions. We will ask for each of those groups that have the opportunity to meet with the candidates to give us their feedback, because we're looking for their input. So there will be one candidate that will be with us each of those days. So we're really looking forward to that, and looking forward to the opportunity for the community to meet the candidates that we have narrowed down to our final 3. So we're really looking forward to that. A lot of people are working on that too. I have to thank a ton of people. Mary Crothers has been working a lot on this, and Rachel Steiner has been helping, and Dawn's going to help, and we're bringing in all hands to get this pulled off. So it's very exciting, but it takes a lot of work. And lastly, another thing that I've been working on is the student trip to the Capitol that we do every year. This takes place on President's Day, and this year that will be Monday, February the 18th. We will be taking 2 buses of students up to the Capitol. The cost of the buses, we have very generous contributions made by our city council members who will cover the cost of the buses for us. We take about 40 students up. We will tour the Capitol, and I just learned on Friday that we have secured the governor to meet with the students. So the students will have the opportunity to sit down with the governor in her office and talk with her as we did last year. It's a wonderful opportunity for our students. They can learn about government processes. We tour the beautiful, beautiful Capitol, and it's a really, really great day. Again, takes a whole day and a lot of planning, but it's worth it for the opportunity for our students. So that's all I have for right now.
Director Gosa.
I just wanted to thank all of our staff that's out doing all the snow removal and everything else in these frigid temperatures. I know they're like the unsung heroes, because if they didn't get the parking lots done, it wouldn't be safe for our students, as well as our staff for coming, in the frigid cold, because you got to get out and shovel your driveway just the same as I do to be here. So I just want them to know that we do appreciate all their hard work and dedication.
Any other board reports? I've got I'm going to try and be brief, but I want to thank so many people for everything going on. All of you out there know most of the big issues that we're dealing with, and there are so many people working on all of this right now, and so many people in the district, a lot of administrators, teachers, as they're looking at responding to all of the original special ed issues, and then our preparation for the phase 2 that's coming up shortly, and we're going through the superintendent search, as Director DeSalvo just mentioned, but there are so many people that all of you can't possibly understand the work that goes into even something like that. And I just wanted to acknowledge, especially our board secretary, Mary Carruthers, has done so much work, and it really helps the board, and it's just nice for me to be able to let all of you know how valuable she is to not only the board but to the district. And a lot of other people have helped. I don't want to minimize their contributions in any way, but it's just been, everything is working the way that it should, and I wanted to publicly say thank you. Okay, now, if we can go on. Now, may I ask for additional communications? Director Potts. Would you read our upcoming events? I could do that. Yeah.
Monday, February 4th, 5:30 is a committee of the whole meeting in the Jim Hester boardroom. Monday, February 11th at 6 o'clock is the regular school board meeting in the Jim Hester boardroom. And Monday, February 25th at 6 p.m. is the regular school board meeting in the Jim Hester boardroom.
Okay, thank you very much. Next is open forum. I have no open forum requests, correct? And if we have no open forum requests, I'm going to go right by that, except to say we always look forward to community input. And we're always trying to encourage community members to come forth and give us your thoughts on various issues regarding the district. But since there aren't any, we'll keep moving. May I have a motion regarding the consent agenda?
Mr. President,
Director Hayes.
I move that the board accept the consent agenda as written.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Okay, we'll call for the vote. Director Hayes.
Yes.
Director DeSalvo.
Yes.
Director Gosa.
Yes.
Director Potts.
Yes.
Director Beck.
Yes.
And my vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. May I have a motion regarding approval of bills?
Mr. President,
Director DeSalvo.
I move that the board approve the following resolution as recommended by the administration for adoption of the bills from the bill listing periods of January 10th, 2019 through January 23rd, 2019. Resolved, all claims presented to the board having been duly certified as correct by the secretary, reviewed by the administration and board members, and they are hereby audited and allowed as just claims and warrants drawn on the treasury for the several amounts. Further resolved, the payment of claims and salaries be approved as presented for the periods of January 10th, 2019 through January 23rd, 2019.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Okay. Call for the vote. Director DeSalvo.
Yes.
Director Beck.
Yes.
Director Gosa.
Yes.
Director Potts.
Yes.
Director Hayes.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. Superintendent report.
I'd like to comment on the January 16th State Board Education meeting. It was requested that President Johansen and I go and Amy Williamson and Sandy Schmitz did an update of the progress made between November and the current date of January 16th. And overall, the report that was given was positive. We are moving in the right direction. We began to talk about our system. Our data is blipping in the right direction. I think as of that moment, we were getting a teacher for every one of our students that wrote compensatory education. And so the presentation was overall positive. The questions that were asked by the state board members were directed towards, when will the district have all of their citations done by April 23rd? And the answer to that was yes, we believe that they will, as long as they continue to work hard as they have been in the last couple of months. How were compensatory education determined? And those questions were quickly answered by Amy Williamson and Sandy Schmitz. And so overall, their questions were directed towards, how were compensatory education, those kinds of things given. When asked if they would like to speak to district representatives, they chose not to, and President Johansson and I were able to leave. So overall, it was a positive meeting, showing that we're going in the right direction. So also, I wanted to comment on our Phase 2 audit. Due to the number of state officials that were coming and the potential weather that we have facing us, they decided to reschedule for February 4th, 5th, and 6th, because if we didn't do it soon, it would be put off until later in March, because that's how the schedules worked out. So both sides agreed to that was possible. And so we are quickly making scheduling arrangements for that. And we recognize that that's right in the middle of our superintendent search. But with a district our size, we believe that we have enough administrators, enough of teachers that we could conduct both of those things. By doing that, it will allow us to move forward faster. It will allow us to get the feedback necessary and move forward and grow and learn from that experience. So those are the two things that I wanted to report out on.
All right, thank you very much. We'll move on to other items requiring action. First is a public hearing on the 1,080 hours of instruction. May I have a motion on the approval of 1,080 hours of instruction rather than 180 days for the 2019-2020 school year?
Mr. President,
Director Hayes.
I move that the board approve the schedule of 1,080 hours of instruction time rather than 180 days for the 2019-20 school year.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
We will now hold a public hearing on the approval of 1,080 hours of instruction rather than 180 days for the 2019-2020 school year, as published in the Quad City Times on January 14, 2019. Anyone wishing to speak on this item, please step forward to the microphone. State your name and address for the record. Seeing and hearing none, I now declare the public hearing closed. Is there any additional discussion on this matter? Director DeSalvo.
We're under the 1,080 now, correct? That's what.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other discussion? I'd ask student board members, do you have any thoughts on this? This came up, I don't know, maybe 3 years ago. The legislature changed the law and allowed us to go either way. So we've been going 1,080 hours. There's a little bit of difference between 1,080 and 180 days. Sure, Natalie?
The only thing I would say is I remember, I think it was like my freshman or sophomore year, maybe sophomore, like we had to go to school one day for like 2 hours because like we had to meet that like limit or whatever because we had like a 2 hour late start or 2 hour early out. And I don't know, to me, I felt like that was just kind of pointless because like we went to school for 2 hours. And it was like the last day and like no teachers want to teach for 2 hours, you know? So that's just my opinion, but.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? All right. I think I called the public hearing closed. And now we will call for the vote. Director Hayes,
Yes.
Director Gosa,
Yes.
Director Beck,
Yes.
Director DeSalvo,
Yes.
Director Potts.
Yes.
And my vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. Next is a public hearing on the start date. May I have a motion on the approval of the start date for the 2019-2020 school calendar?
Mr. President,
Director Hayes,
I move that the board approve the start date of Monday, August 26, 2019 for the 1920 school year.
all right. Thank you. Is there a second? We will now hold a public hearing on the proposed start date of Monday, August 26, 2019 for the 2019-2020 school year as published in the Quad City Times on January 14, 2019. Anyone wishing to speak on this item, please step forward to the microphone. State your name and address for the record.
Read the wrong thing.
What's that?
You read the wrong thing.
Oh, excuse me. What did I read wrong?
You read August 26th start date. No, we're down to the 7th.
That's what's.
No, we're on the August 26th. We only did an instruction night.
Okay. Sorry. Go.
Oh, was there a
You're
mistake?
fine.
No, you're
No,
fine.
You're good.
I moved ahead.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Sorry.
I just wanted to verify we're talking about a proposed start date of Monday, August 26, 2019 for the 2019-2020 school year as published in the Quad City Times on January 14th, 2019. I had just asked if anyone wanted to step up to the microphone. Seeing none, I now declare the public hearing closed. Is there any additional discussion on this matter? All right, I'll call for the vote. Director Hayes,
Yes.
Director Gosa,
Yes.
Director Beck,
Yes.
Director DeSalvo,
Yes.
Director Potts?
Yes.
And my vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. We have one more hearing. May I have a motion on the approval of plans and specifications for the Sudlow and Washington outdoor classroom project?
Mr. President,
Director Beck.
I move that the board approve the recommended plans and specifications for the Sudlow and Washington outdoor classroom.
All right, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
We'll now hold a public hearing on the approval of plans and specifications for the Sudlow and Washington outdoor classroom project as published in the Quad City Times on January 18, 2019. Anyone wishing to speak on this item, please step forward to the microphone. State your name and address for the record.
Hi, is this on?
It'll be green.
There you go.
Hi, Tyler Weger, 3328 East Kimberly Road, Davenport. I have a question. It says it's being funded by the PEPAL and SAVE accounts, but it's not in either of the long-range facility plans. So which line item is that under in those funds?
That's gonna be my question. Mike?
We'll have somebody come up that can perhaps answer those questions.
Thanks.
I have it.
The this I believe is going to be funded out of SAVE, and over the last several months, we have made a number of revisions between SAVE and PEPAL funds that are not reflected yet in the most recent spreadsheets that are posted on the district website, and so this project currently appears as a line item in the most recent long-range plan spreadsheets that have not yet been posted up to the district website. So it does not appear as a line item on the sheets that are currently posted on the website. So we'll take care to get that updated.
Okay, you may, is that? That was it. And that's all you needed? Okay, thank you for your questions. Are there any other, is there any other discussion on this matter? All right,
Yep.
and now, oh, excuse me.
Wait, I gotta wait till it's for our turn.
Right.
Go ahead.
Yeah, this is for the public hearing. So if there is no additional discussion, I will go ahead and declare the public hearing closed. Is there any additional discussion on this matter? Director Gosa.
So, as it stands right now, I'm going to vote no for this because those bathrooms at Central need to get taken care of before we worry about outside stuff. I remember, I think it was a December meeting that Mr. Maloney had said that we were going to be getting the proposal for, or having the public meeting for the Central bathrooms in January. This is the last meeting of January, and we still have not had that. I want to make sure that that gets taken care of before I worry about classrooms outside, because that was atrocious when I went in there and actually saw that, and that should have been taken care of. How long has it been? Like a year? About a year now, and nothing's been done with that? That's a little disappointing.
Approval of the architect's contract for the central restroom and locker room renovations is scheduled to appear on the February 11th board meeting. The architect has been selected, and preliminary work is underway, and that is expected to be done this spring and summer.
And what was that date again?
This spring and summer?
No, I mean, it will, because I heard this before. It will be, I want to make sure this is recorded, on February when it's going to be at that meeting. It will for sure.
I will present the documents to the agenda committee. It's their choice.
Okay. All right, because I've been hearing that for a year. I want to make sure this gets done. That's number one priority for me before all this stuff.
Is there any other discussion? Director Potts.
Physically, where is this classroom going to be placed?
On that, what's sloped area outside the cafeteria, you know, that asphalt area that kind of slopes down toward the street outside the cafeteria, that will be raised up and leveled. Yeah. It used to be parking.
Director Beck.
I guess I just have a question, sort of what are the planned uses of this? I mean, are there already lessons planned? Are we doing this because somebody thought it would be one teacher thought it would be a great idea, or is this something we've really thought about how it's actually going to be used, and are we going to be adding it to other schools?
We have already similar spaces in most of our schools. The last several years, we've been improving some of those, adding some additional ones, and it is our plan to have a quality outdoor learning space at each school, and there's really good research supporting that student achievement in other domains improves if they have more exposure to the outdoors. And I'll let Principal Wilkins tell you about the particular plans.
We've been under this discussion for a while, and just the opportunities for getting intermediate kids outside is a great opportunity. And currently, they don't have any seating whatsoever outside. So we think this is an opportunity for any of the teachers, everybody that I've spoken to. One thing that was really cool that I want, now that I have your attention, is that we brought in architects, and they brought in kids and had the kids really contribute to the layout, what they would love, what they wouldn't love. And we started that process last year, so it was really incredible for the kids to see that, to have that conversation with the architects, and to give their input. And so throughout the entire process, I grab kids anytime I can just to talk to them about what could you see doing with this space or that space. And so the 8th graders are kind of disappointed because they won't be there to see it happen, but very enthusiastic about seeing it from the start of school until the after-school activities too. Our drama club is really excited about it. So we see just a variety, and we even talked about how are we gonna, who's gonna share the space, and who's gonna win, and how are we gonna fight over this space. So it's really kind of a coveted spot. I think that they would really enjoy having it. Right now, it's just it's an empty space,
Okay.
and it's not utilized except for with our police officer parks there. So that's it. So that's about it.
Thank you.
Any other?
Director DeSalvo.
I would just ask Mr. Maloney again too, kind of along what we heard from the public. I know that there's a lot of changes happening with some changes in long-term planning, but I'm curious about how things are prioritized, how we're deciding what goes when, and there's a lot of things on that plan that I've been waiting for a long time, as Director Gosa mentioned. So I'm very curious about how things are chosen and how you pick what's going to go next and who's providing that input. So, I think this sounds like a great thing to have for our students, but I agree with everything that's been said here today. We need to know what's on that plan and when things are coming up next. We need to know when some of those older things are going to be worked on because they've been on the plan a long, long time. And then benefit to students. Ultimately, that's what we all want, is something that's going to be beneficial to our students. So that's information that I would hope to have very soon. So, thank you.
Several times a year, what we refer to as the Long Range Facility Plan Leadership Team meets to review work underway, changes in budgets as they occur, and to discuss priorities. And there are always emerging priorities. And sometimes as we examine particular projects, we find the price goes up. A few times the price goes down, not usually. Of course, with the renewal and increase of the PEPL, we have some additional funds starting to come in next fiscal year that will help us with priority projects. And we try to spread our priorities out across several domains there, including improving buildings in the realm of their educational specification requirements, doing the physical things, roofs and boiler replacements and so forth, and doing the energy saving things. There are a number of priorities you may recall from March of last year where we brought priorities to the board, and it was energy, it's bringing our ed specs up. And so we try to spread across all of those things. Other projects coming up for approval of architects February 11th will be the North High Athletic Facility, the replacement of the boiler and some other upgrades at Hayes Elementary. We have parking lot, staff parking at Hayes Elementary and at Williams Intermediate. Toilet room renovations at 2 buildings again this year, some of those ongoing things. Of course, the Central High locker room project, a classroom in the auto shop at Central High, the last phase of the corridor improvements at West High. So there are a number of things, and this is the time of year when we've been doing preliminary work early in the winter, and usually December, January, February is when you have a lot of public hearings, a lot of architect selection and project approvals.
Any other discussion? All right, we'll call for the vote. Director Beck.
Yes.
Director Gosa.
No.
Director Potts.
Yes.
Director DeSalvo.
Yes.
Director Hayes.
No.
My vote is excuse me? My vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. May I have a motion regarding approval of equity coordinators?
Mr. President,
Director DeSalvo.
I move that the board accept the administration's recommendation to approve Dr. Erica Goldstone and Mr. Jabari Woods as the district's equity coordinators for the 2018-19 school year.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Director DeSalvo.
What is an equity coordinator, and why are we voting on it in January when it's, I'm assuming, have gone on so far this school year, since it's for the 2018-19 school year?
Good evening. I thought you never asked that question. Equity plays a crucial role in the district maintaining Title VI and Title IX requirements. Under federal law, we're mandated to protect discrimination against sexual harassment, color, gender, and my responsibility is to make sure we disseminate that throughout the district on a regular basis. I'm also responsible for the Equity Committee. Right now, we have 7 cohorts with a mission to pursue areas in our district that we can improve on in regards to justice, education, parents, students. And so that's just genesis of what we do on a regular basis.
And the second part of my question, why are we voting on this now when it's for the school year that's going on right now? Like, it says 2018-19 and this is January of 2019.
We are doing it now as we were preparing for the Phase 2 audit. That was one of the things that is a requirement. I was not aware of it prior to the Phase 2. So on the documentation, I said we would be bringing it to the board for their review tonight.
So this isn't an appointment, or this has not been something we have previously had in place?
No.
Okay.
But it is required now by the state, as well as having equity coordinators. And on posters that we have in buildings, we do have us listed as the coordinator for that.
Thank you.
Director Gosa.
I'm kind of along the lines of Director Salvo. Is this something new that the state just started, or is it something that they did and we just haven't been doing it?
I have never been aware of it until the Phase 2 audit.
Whose responsibility does it fall on to make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing?
What typically has happened in the past, and it could be my oversight, and I'm willing to accept that, but the equity person at state then notifies us of any changes, any requirements, etc. Either I missed that notification, but I became aware of it when I was preparing documents for the Phase 2 audit that's coming up.
Okay, so when you were made aware of it, when did they say that this actually went in effect and it should have been?
It did not say. It just simply said, have you had board approval of your equity coordinators? And you needed to give the date of that.
Okay, well, no wonder the state thinks we are the way we are. Thank you.
Anytime.
Director Hayes.
This is something that we've been doing for the meetings each month. We just haven't voted on it.
We haven't voted on it, yeah. We have been listed as the coordinators, but have not brought that to the board for their vote.
Okay, thanks.
Anything else? All right, we'll call for the vote. Director DeSalvo.
Yes.
Director Hayes.
Yes.
Director Potts.
Yes.
Director Gosa.
Yes.
Director Beck.
Yes.
And my vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. I have a motion for approval to file an application with the School Budget Review Committee.
Mr. President,
Director DeSalvo.
I move that the board approve the superintendent recommendation for filing an application with the School Budget Review Committee for modified supplemental amount of $13,100,000 $201,650, which represents negative unspent balance as of June 30th, 2018, and approve the district's corrective action plan to reduce expenditures in order to have a positive unspent balance by June 30th, 2020.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Well, then I'll ask. Did we not approve a corrective action plan earlier that would have reduced expenditures to comply with this state?
Yes, you approved that on November 28th. This is a formality I have to submit with the exhibits for our next appearance at the SBRC, that you took action to approve appearing, which is a real formality because we're required to appear, and that you approved the corrective action plan. So this is a formality to get this formal board action taken and have it in our minutes, so I can submit those with the exhibits.
It just seems strange to me. Is it exactly the same motion that we approved in November?
The motion that was approved in November was to approve the corrective action plan, but to not request the modified supplemental amount at that time, and that was upon the recommendation of the Department of Education.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Is there any other discussion? Director DeSalvo.
I would also just like to clarify that this is a fluid plan. I mean, we don't have a plan here we're approving the amount, but I would just like to make sure that that comment remains out there, that this is fluid. The amount won't change, but what goes into it could.
Yeah, no, we use the word fluid somewhere. Okay, but the motion as it stands is for that precise amount, $13,201,650. I just want to clarify that. Any other discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll call for the vote. Director DeSalvo?
Yes.
Director Hayes?
Yes.
Director Gosa?
Yes.
Director Potts?
Yes.
Director Beck?
Yes.
And my vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. May I have a motion regarding approval of bid for the Mid-City High School Urban Farm Structure Project?
Mr. President,
Director Hayes.
I move the board approve the lowest responsible and responsive bid for Precision Builders in the amount of $172,000 for the Mid-City Urban Farm Structure Project.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Director DeSalvo.
Just to clarify, this is all a grant-based project.
It is mostly, it is mostly grant funded. There was a budget shortfall of $56,763.82. And that can be taken from unencumbered funds in the superintendent's contingency line item without affecting any other projects. So there would be $56,763 of PEPAL funds in order to make this budget work.
Go ahead, Director DeSalvo.
How are we over already when the project hasn't started? The architects?
Pardon?
The architects? Like, how can we be over on the project when we haven't even started it?
The projected total cost would be over the amount currently raised. If we were to award this bid without having the additional PEPAL funds, it would be over budget. With the PEPAL funds, it is, its budget is complete.
Is there more discussion? Director Beck.
So is there still work going on to try and raise these funds
Yes,
so that, and would they be paid back then to the superintendent's contingency?
that was not the plan to repay the PEPAL funds. There is additional fundraising underway to buy equipment for the building and interior finishes and things like that. This provides only the shell. The teacher who won the initial grant from Wellmark Foundation raised additional funds, a total of about $163,000, and we are $160,000, I'm sorry. And she continues to do fundraising and get in kinds and other commitments, but this, as it stands now, would build only the shell. The Wellmark grant had been extended 1 year already, and we were going to either have to surrender that $100,000 grant or contribute some additional funds to get the initial building shell built.
And, sorry, may I follow up? Are there, who's paying for subsequent years? Once the shell is built and there's consumables being used, where does that money come from?
That would be Mid-City's operational budget.
Okay. So all we have to pay for is the building itself, all the stuff that's going on inside.
Everything that's going on inside is currently going on inside the Mid-City building.
Okay.
And this will provide a more appropriate space for the activities that this particular teacher is doing that are related to the urban farm project and the gardening and the harvesting and preparing of food and so forth.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Kind of out of curiosity then, will you have running water down there?
Yes.
Okay. And when you talk about preparing of foods, how in-depth would that be in that facility?
Eventually, the plans are to have a commercial kitchen, a classroom, and a separate equipment storage area in the building.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? All right, call for the vote. Director Hayes.
As much as I would like to support this, it doesn't sound like we're able to afford it at this point in time, so I'm gonna have to say no.
I'm wondering, is there anything we can do to help your voice? All right. Director Gosa.
Yes.
Director Potts.
Yes.
Director DeSalvo.
I'm going to say yes.
Director Beck.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you. Excuse me?
You didn't vote.
Oh, I circled it already. My vote was yes. Thank you for asking. May I have a motion regarding approval of additional early retirement incentive?
Mr. President,
Director Hayes.
I move the board approve the early retirement incentive as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Director Beck.
Could I just ask for sort of a summary of what we are offering and how it's different from the previous early retirement incentives? And then how many more teachers and staff are we likely to lose through this, or are likely to take us up on this offer?
That's kind of the million-dollar question.
Right.
We really don't know how many will. The rationale behind bringing another one, the last one was 15, 20, 25, 30 years. This one drops down to 10 years in an effort to see are there some people available who would be interested but have not been here 15, 20, 25, 30 years. So the potential numbers of teachers are on that chart as well as all others, but that's an individual decision whether or not someone would choose to do it. But this is a one-time only that we will drop it down to 10 years to see if perhaps there are some people who might be interested in having an early retirement incentive and yet did not meet the previous years of experience.
Okay, and just in my cursory glance, I mean, in my understanding, it looks like there's actually fewer teachers that would be eligible for this modified
That is
on top
correct.
of what we already have, but about the same number of staff.
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any additional discussion? Director DeSalvo.
I know when we previously made this offer, they had to let you know by like first week in January or something. When will you require?
We're looking at a 2-week window.
Okay.
And if you approve it tonight, we'll get it out to faculty and staff first thing tomorrow morning. And it would run from January 29th through February 11th, it would close.
Okay.
So it will not be as long a period as time as previously. But we would let everyone know that it is available and what the time window is.
Thank you.
Anything else? I've got a couple questions. So, so we're going down to 10 years.
Yes.
And if this is opened up, does it reopen all of the other opportunities? So somebody with whatever 20 years could go ahead and apply at this point too. Is that correct?
Oh, absolutely. It is open to anyone from 10 to 30 years that you did not previously apply. You can certainly choose to apply now.
And what years was it on the original?
15, the original was 2025. I came to you earlier late in 2018 and dropped it to 15 years. So it was 15, 20, 25, and 30.
So you're asking for an additional 5 years or whatever that is.
From 10 to 15.
Do you have any inclination or guess as to how many teachers and how many all other staff might, if you were going to guess, how many additional people will you get by opening this up?
If I took a wild guess, probably less than 10. Part of this is people financially have to feel that they are ready to retire at this point. If you're 10 years and you want to get involved with this, you likely have had other years in Iowa. It's not just this 10 years, but you're looking at how much is IPERS going to pay you, et cetera. Do you feel you are ready and are wanting to retire at this particular point? So it's very difficult to say because someone is eligible does not necessarily mean that they are going to utilize this particular opportunity.
One of the questions that I had that I failed to get to the administration early enough, I was curious about the effect of these on IPERS. So if we give a benefit in these number of dollars, is IPERS paid in addition to these amounts?
Yeah, if you're eligible, yes.
Which I would guess everybody here is eligible, right?
Yeah, I would imagine so. But as we have conversations with people, when it comes to actual IPERS and what your entitlement is with IPERS, we ask that you have those direct conversations with IPERS.
I would ask that Claudia speak up to this question because I think what you're asking is different than what Dr. Golson was speaking to.
Okay.
This early retirement incentive that we pay is not IPERS taxable, so there is no additional payroll tax cost to the district. The amount of the incentive is paid at that flat dollar amount. It's paid out of the management fund, and we do not pay Social Security or Medicare taxes. We do not pay IPERS, and nothing is withheld from the employee. And the payment is not made directly to the employee. It's paid into whichever plan they select, either the health savings account or the annuity. So there is no IPERS impact to
So
the district.
if that's the case, it feels almost like a pure bonus, which it sounds like you're saying that there are no benefits attached to this amount. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So there's no health insurance. There's no, if there's no IPERS, the way I understand what you're saying, there's no, what's the other word? Annuity.
Correct.
Okay. So
Yes,
it's
when
just a straight dollar amount, that's it, and we're going to give it to you.
Right. The employee retires at the end of June, and at that time ceases to be an employee, receives their final payment of whatever wages or salary are owed to them, and whatever benefits are associated with that salary. The first of, I believe the retirement incentive is paid out over 5 years.
Yes.
The first payment on that early retirement incentive is not made until January. And again, it is not made directly to the employee. It's paid into whichever plan the retiree selected. So it is not wages. There are no payroll taxes. There's no insurance benefits that we pay.
If we pay it out over 5 years, does it accrue interest during those 5 years?
It depends on what plan they put it in and how that's handled in the plan. At that point, that's between the employee and if they've.
Oh,
have the
okay. So
annuity.
we don't hold the money and distribute it
No.
over those 5 years. Okay, thank you. Any other discussion?
Yeah, and it depends what investment options they
Okay, we'll call for the vote. Get back here. All right, Director Hayes.
Yes.
Director Gosa.
Yes.
Director Beck.
Yes.
Director DeSalvo.
Yes.
Director Potts.
Yes.
And my vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. May I have a motion regarding approval of policies?
Mr. President,
Director DeSalvo.
I move that the board approve the policy committee's recommendation to approve the following policies. 307.06 visitors to school district buildings, 303.01 purchasing policy.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Director Gosa.
The purchasing policy, is that just separating that from the other? That's all that is.
Yeah, this is just that first part that I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, this is just that first part, and we pulled out the construction projects that we're still working on. So this is basically what was already there that we decided to keep.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other discussion? Call for the did you list the two policies? I
Yes,
think
she
you
did.
did. Okay. We'll call for the vote. Director DeSalvo,
Yes.
Director Hayes,
Yes.
Director Potts,
Yes.
Director Gosa,
Yes.
Director Beck,
Yes.
and my vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. We have a couple of discussion items. Interim Superintendent Schneckloth, you want to lead us on that special education update?
Okay.
Susan is here. Thank you, Susan.
You bet. So it hasn't been that long since we met, and there have been very few school days over the last couple of weeks. So in terms of the Appendix A and Appendix B data that I usually share, there's not much to update there. I did include, just for you to look at, an update of the Comp Ed number of students owed and the Comp Ed hour data. We also share a link with you for the weekly on the number of students. There hasn't been a lot of change there, but just so you can see, we keep updating it. And if you have questions, we did do PD for the entire district, general ed and special ed teachers over the disproportionality citation. That was informational only and just the beginning as our district moves forward with really digging in and trying to make changes in that area. And we, as a result of the last meeting, have started developing a survey for parents to fill out after IEP meetings so that we can get some feedback on that. Other than that, there's not a whole lot to update, but I can answer any questions you have.
The survey that we have that we're developing for IEP meetings, I think that's really important. Is it anonymous? Is there a way to make it anonymous?
Yeah, we will work on that. Today we worked on fine-tuning the questions, and Sandy worked with us on that, our department, and we'll share it with the associate superintendents and interim superintendent Schneckloff this week, and then we'll have to kind of work out that technical aspect, but yes, we would make it anonymous.
Okay, and then are you also doing, do you guys do evaluations for the PD as well? Do teachers fill out?
We do, we do. We had, although we provided PD for about 1,400 teachers, right around there. We had, I think it was a little over 300 that actually completed the survey and provided feedback on a variety of things.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Anybody else? Director Gosa.
I'll just keep it short and sweet. How do you feel that this is going? Do you feel it's going good? It's kind of slow. It could be better.
Which pieces?
The whole shebang.
The whole shebang. I think it kind of depends on which piece we're talking about. As far as moving on the citations, we are really, this last week with the snow days, and perhaps this current week, if we end up with a couple of days, kind of slow it down, but we still think we're on track for having all of those completed by April 23rd. We're moving forward on making some systemic changes in how we provide services, and we'll be reporting out on those as we move forward on those. I think the one that started off pretty slow was disproportionality, but we've kind of turned the corner there and are moving forward on that as well. That one's going to take a little more time because it's deep-rooted.
Okay, thank you.
Director DeSalvo.
On those that decline services, I know you talked about the surveys, but I'm very curious, and I think we talked about this when you presented the report the last time, but do we have any idea why people are declining?
Yes, so I did pull the prior written notices, or our secretary pulled them for me, so I could, the first thing I decided to do was review that to see if the reason was given. In the majority of them, a reason was given, and it kind of varies. Some of them were students who had reached the age of majority, 18, 19, 20, 21, and they just said they're not interested, and they get to do that. Some parents said, yeah, you know, they may qualify over something that happened a couple years ago, but now my student is making really good progress and I really see no need. A couple of parents said, I have a hard enough time as it is. Getting my child to come to school, extending the day might make it harder. And then there were a few that didn't have the reason listed. And I think I'll just reach out personally to those parents and check in and see how they are doing, because we've had some parents change their mind later, so I think I'll just reach out personally to them.
Very good. Thank you.
Director Beck.
I personally would appreciate that follow-up. I think that's an important piece of this puzzle is following up and reaching out to as many people as we can. As far as the parent survey for IEP meetings, and forgive me if you've already said you're doing this, but have we reached out to all parents of children with IEPs and said, you know, are you satisfied? What do you think?
We have not. That's why and that's what we intend to do with the survey.
Okay, so that will go to everybody, not just after an IEP meeting necessarily, because I guess there's a couple parts to it, right? You could be really unhappy with a particular meeting, but you could be happy overall with the way the services are going or vice versa. And so I guess I see it as different things, sort of getting a feel for how we're doing in general, how most parents feel we're doing in general, and then using specific meetings to figure out what are the specific things that we could do better to make these experiences what we think they should be. And I realize it's a huge project to reach out to everybody, but
Yeah, well, we can figure out a way to do that.
okay, thank you.
Anything else? Kind of along those lines, I'm looking at your charts here, and I'm thinking back to the meeting at the State Board of Education on November 14th, where they basically said that your original letters that I believed you had done in trying to accommodate the direction from the Department of Education. That was my belief, was that you had complied with what they had asked you for. Is that kind of right?
Yeah, we had complied with it. We had met that citation, but then after that state board meeting, this board had asked that we follow up, and we
Right.
did do that, and I provided that data
Right.
the last meeting.
No,
It's in the
you've done all that. But when I look here and it says declined after letter sent, 3,154.24, and that represents hours, I think, the way that chart is indicated. And so going back to that November 14th meeting, though it seemed so, I don't know how to describe it. It was as if there was no way to comply until we get everybody there, not just that you've sent a letter and not just that you've reached out to them. And I don't think we can reach out infinite number of times. And I think you said like after 3 times or something. I mean, you have a process, and you just don't go for forever trying to get a hold of these people, right?
Right, but we can always check back later after, we had talked as a department that after we meet our citations on April 23rd, we will reach back out again just to see. There's nothing wrong with reaching out to people who have declined, so we'll do that again.
Right, I agree there's nothing wrong. I just want to make sure that we're not only complying with the department, but that we're complying with the state board wishes. And I don't know how to interpret those.
Well, they haven't said anything about the students that have declined, so I think we move forward unless we hear differently from them. But I, again, will call out, I will reach out to those families personally. Sometimes it's hard to reach some people, but I will reach out personally.
And the department is comfortable with all of these numbers? Because you've got, what, probably 8 numbers on there.
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. Any other discussion? Okay, then is there anything else to talk about on special ed update? All right, then we'll move on to our last discussion item, which is the budget.
The last time I presented to you with an update of our current plan for the current year and the 1920 school year, which is next year. So what I'd like to do tonight is clear up a couple of items. One of the questions that we had last time was, what's the difference between the SBRC budget reductions and the tax levy budget that we will be doing in April? So I've asked Claudia to kind of give us a description of what the differences between those two are, and then I'll move forward with explaining how we're going to go forward with the large ticket items and how we move forward in years 3, 4, and 5, not just 1 and 2. And so Claudia, if you would just kind of give us the difference between when we're discussing the SBRC, because they're kind of intermingled together. They're important because one helps build the other one. The SBRC and the budget that we will be approving, and the board will be approving in April. So give us a update on that.
The SBRC, until a couple of years ago, we didn't have all of these budget plans and everything that we had to do because we still had a positive unspent balance. In the past, before we had a negative unspent balance, the SBRC requests were for what is considered kind of the normal standard items, a special education deficit, the ELL excess costs, that type of thing. But over the last couple of years, since we've had a negative unspent balance, we have been required to appear before the School Budget Review Committee to present to them plans on how we are working toward getting back to a positive unspent balance. So when we talk about that 2 and 5 year plan that you approved back in November, as TJ and I were talking earlier today, I kind of wondered if it would maybe clarify things if instead of calling that a budget reduction plan, we call it an expenditure reduction plan. And that may be a fine point, but it may help clarify. When we report on our certified annual report in September each year for the prior fiscal year, that's the information that the Department of Ed and then the SBRC uses to determine if we have a positive or a negative unspent balance. And that is determined based on our actual expenditures, which in some ways don't necessarily correlate to the certified budget. We have to report our actual expenditures. So when we're talking about that 2 and 5 year plan, I might suggest that we refer to it as our expenditure reduction plan. What are we planning to do the rest of this year and next year, and then the following 3 years to reduce our actual expenditures in our general fund so that we can achieve and maintain a positive unspent balance. So that's what we've been talking a lot about because we've been required to appear before the SBRC. The other thing that we've been talking about, and we'll be talking about more in March and April, is the annual certified budget. And that is something that we have always had to do, every school district has to do, and it is really how we set our tax levy, and it's made up of obviously our general fund levy. We also have our PEPL levy, the management fund, cash reserve levy, and we have to take a look at our long-range projections to help us put that together. But that annual certified budget that you have to approve is only for that next year, and that's a one year tax levy rate approval that you are passing. And it doesn't get into some of the specific expenditures that we talk about when we've been talking about this 2 and 5 year expenditure reduction plan. They do work together, but there's some significant differences in how we approach those. So I don't know if that helps clarify some things for you. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Director DeSalvo.
I have a question about budget guarantee. How how does that fall into, when we move into a budget guarantee situation, that's when the state underfunds us, I guess is probably a pretty strong word, but that's the truth of it. And we move to budget guarantee. And basically that's an increase in taxes to cover the difference between what the state is giving us and what our budget says we need.
Budget guarantee happens when we have declining enrollment and the amount of the state aid generated based on the number of students we have would fall below the previous level, then we fall into budget guarantee. And you're right, we end up funding that, but it's kind of protecting us from real sharp drop-offs from one year to the next.
So when we look at levies, is that considered?
Yes.
Like what happened the prior year, so a levy would include budget guarantee that we moved to the prior year.
Yes.
So that's, taxpayers should really be aware of that. Thank you.
Any other questions for Claudia? Okay.
So with that being said, I wanted to bring forth the budget that you approved in November just to get your eyes back on it again. And so this budget is the one that you guys refer to as the fluid budget, because when we talk, and you said it perfectly, Director DeSalvo, is that when in fluid meaning we have a, oh, you need one? Sorry. The fluid part is not the fact that we need to make budget reductions. The fluid part is how we make our budget reductions. And this plan calls for some big ticket items and school closings, the block schedule, different items that are on there. In moving forward with this process, we can't wait any longer. If the board decides to act in 21, 22, or 2021, 21, 22, 2023, they need to begin to have conversations now around these big ticket items. So one of the things that the administration wanted to do for the school board was to find out what are the best practices in determining next steps for the district. What does the community want? What do our stakeholders want? And so Rachel, Mike Maloney, myself, Bill Schnaden, Rob Scott, and Claudia, we've begun to look at best practices across the country to help school board members make decisions that involve the silent majority of the community. And so, Rachel, I would like you to come up and kind of give us a synopsis of where we are in that research process of best practices for school boards in terms to make some of these large decisions.
Thank you. Yeah, we've been in discussion to address your interest in a broader public input process to address expenditure reductions because we know that you value that community impact input in the process. We've started to develop a timeline and process based on best practices through review of research from Rand Corporation, Carnegie Mellon, the Pew Charitable Trust, National School Public Relations Association, NEA, as well as the California Department of Education, which I think is a model that's been discussed at previous board meetings, looking at similar processes and commonalities between those to develop a process over the next 6 to 8 months to propose to you. We're looking for your input and hope to have this on a committee of the whole agenda soon, but wanted to put in front of you kind of a brief synopsis of timeline and process, starting with a series of outreach community meetings that would be actually hosted by community partners. So rather than being in school facilities, actually being in community facilities, which I think you all have experienced in the past and found value in. John Border's been working on mapping those across the district so that we see a really broad representation of both faith-based as well as community centers and nonprofit agencies engaged, but also that geographically we have good broad representation around our community. And that would be kind of an overview session around some of the current challenges and the inevitability of these cuts, but also mapping out the process for them initially to just get some feedback into the process and potential expenditures that could be identified, but also to distill interest and potential participants to come to the table in a more intensive committee structure. That would be a group that would be meeting then another 8 to 12 times that would go deeper into the different expenditure areas. They would go through a pretty intensive education session around the realities of our budget and some of the technicalities and complexities of school finance, and then ultimately would be distilling a series of recommendations right down to prioritizing that list for you, and we would attach that like a menu to the dollar amounts that would be attached to each of those reductions. We would anticipate that occurring through the spring months, so that by the summer they could do their final prioritization and bring that back to administration so that we could be attaching real dollar amounts to that to take back to the committee to make sure that that's a complete process and that meets your budget goal. And then that would come back to the board for consideration. I think initially we're looking at that coming back out to the school board and the community for discussion in August, with deliberation and any additional recommendations or requests you have of administration through September so that you're ready for a vote in October.
I just want to clarify. You said that some of these stakeholders would go through budget training so that they would then be able to educate their communities.
That's right. So we would have a committee essentially of representative stakeholders from across the community, including parents as well as agency partners, community partners.
Okay.
So we would be looking for any of your feedback now, but we'd also appreciate an opportunity for a deeper discussion at a future committee of the whole meeting.
Are there any questions for Rachel or any additional discussion? Director DeSalvo.
I don't really have questions. I think I will the further we get into it, but I like the idea of community involvement. We've tried open forums, and we talked about that earlier today, that it's just, it needs to be more productive. We hear it from the community. We know those hot points. We understand that, but I think getting their input and giving them a voice in these decisions is very, very important. So I like this approach. I would like to keep us updated with what you're doing, your meetings, and how things are progressing, and who's involved, and all that, because I think it's very, very important. So I do like this idea. Thank you.
Director Beck.
I agree. I think this is, I'm happy to hear that we are looking into ways to get to all corners of the community. I wouldn't necessarily, I actually found the open forums kind of valuable. I heard ideas that I hadn't heard before, so I guess I don't see them, necessarily, they're not necessarily the worst thing to do, I think. But doing this as well is important because we do want to hear from people, but not everybody knows how to get in touch with us. Now I don't remember I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. Getting tired. But I just want to say I think it's important looking into best practices and looking at, how things have worked in other districts. That is so important that we do it right and we get the feedback we need to get. Yeah. Thank you.
Interim Superintendent Schneckloff.
It's going to be very important that the first thing that we do is share the why. And so the very first presentation that we're going to be doing in the different parts of our city is, why are we at the spot that we're at? And so that's the first portion of it. The second portion of it is seeking the input. We are going to bring this to a committee of the whole and allow you guys to dig deep into it. One of the things I'd like you to think about is, in the past, I want you to think about a group that will inform and advise you. But at the end of the day, it's going to be a decision that's made by this group of people. And it can be made, the administration make recommendations. the way that it's been done in the past with this advisory committee. And so we have a lot of determining to do. But seeking this public input in a very strategic way will feel very similar to the way that Hazard Young and Associates stood up here and advised you of what your candidates are looking for. This is what your community said. And I remember when they stood up here and presented that to us, it was very comforting to let you know that at least we were heading in this direction. And so what it would look like if we were successful coming out of this is that you guys would feel like you have information that represents multiple parts of our community. So, Rachel, thank you very much for that. Appreciate that. So as we move forward.
Yeah, I'm guessing there's a couple more questions for Rachel.
I remembered
don't
my
leave yet.
comment.
Director Beck.
I remembered my comment.
Okay.
I think one of the things I would like to see, and maybe I'm just volunteering myself for more work, is board members out at these meetings, because we can't just sit up here and have people bring us information through essentially a third party, right, or third hand. I think it's important for us to be out there as well, listening as much as we can. And I know most of us do that, but being present at those types of meetings makes it a little bit easier and facilitates that. So, yeah, I probably just volunteered myself for like 1 million events.
Any other discussion? I've got a couple concerns. When you gave an overview of the schedule, and as I've looked at the next 2 years, and I've considered the past few years, and I believe, in fact, that over the past probably 2 years, we discussed a possible school closing, and we even named a school, and then we got into all sorts of trouble from virtually everybody. And eventually, we decided not to approve following that policy, which would have led to closing a school. And so right now, we are not in a position to close a school. And that process takes an enormous amount of time. And I believe I'm really stretching my recollection here, but I think that the decision has to be made somewhere in October, but prior to that, I think there's another decision point somewhere back in August where the board, if the board is going to do something in 2021, it has to make decisions as early as this coming August in 2019, which means I believe that the board and the administration, if we're going to discuss that, should be discussing it pretty soon. And if we ask the community what they want based on the experiences that we had the past few years, I would say the community would say, absolutely not. We don't want to close a school. That's my guess. And I think that the situation, there's that, and another one that I know that had been discussed and that will be an issue at some point is the block versus traditional. And I think that I bring these up only as a sense of urgency, I think, for the board and the community and the district to really consider this, because I believe that if we simply kick the can down the road on these big projects, and if we don't comply with what we have warranted to the SBRC, then I think we'll be in trouble to the SBRC and to the State Board of Education. So I just want to identify those, and I'll continue to bring those up if we start looking like we're going to bypass them. That's all I got. Any other discussion on this subject? All right, thank you very much. We're just about done. We'll move on to administrative reports.
There are none.
Okay. Board requests, we do have a few here. First, Allison Beck, today's date, agenda item. I would like the board to convene and come up with 7-ish goals to guide our work in the next few years. These goals should be explicit, measurable, and reflect the shared priorities of the members of the board and the vision of the district. Why are you requesting this information or agenda item? State and national organizations such as Iowa Association of School Boards recommend that school boards develop goals focused on student achievement. For the ISB, this is part of their best practices for vision and planning found in their descriptions of effective school boards. We should follow best practices. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Next is a request from Director Gosa, today's date, agenda item. I would like to have information as well as a discussion on the potential of bringing our busing services back in-house instead of outsourcing. Why are you requesting this information or agenda item? I feel this information is very important with upcoming budget discussions on the potential long-term savings with bringing busing in-house. Is there a second?
Second.
And I apologize, I think I forgot on the first one. When would you like this information or agenda item? As soon as possible in February. And
Not
this,
as soon as possible in February, but sometime in February.
right,
Yeah, okay.
right. I thought that's what I read. Okay, and for the second one, it's as soon as possible. Another one from Director Gosa, today's date, information request. I would like information pertaining to what all state mandates that we are in compliance with and what we are not, so we can get it corrected. Why are you requesting this information or agenda item? After the approval of an item tonight that we were not complying with, I feel this is very important, so we are on par. Is there a second?
Second.
And when would you like this information? Immediately. Another board request from Director Hayes, today's date, agenda item. During our December 10th, 2018. Okay, thank you. During our December 10th, 2018 meeting, we were told to expect public hearing information in January for the Central High School locker rooms. I would like to request this information to be added to the agenda. Why are you requesting this information? During a February meeting. Did you want to say more?
Meeting's over, folks. Time to leave it.
All right. The why